stomp you out. Came with all my goons, we gon' thug it out. Go ahead, bust a move, we gon' stomp you out. Came with all my goons, we gon' thug it out. Throw your hood up, go ahead and rep your city. Throw your hood up, go ahead and rep your...
It is a topic that I hate, Glovegate. In the sport of boxing, we're used to hearing excuses for poor performances.
I broke my back.
What do you mean by that?
My back is broken.
What, a vertebrae or
Well,
what portion?
Spinal.
I broke my toe about 3 weeks ago. My haymaker wasn't there. My haymaker's my right punch, and I couldn't push off my right foot to land that shot. It's really frustrating. There's nothing worse than seeing his chin there, trying to throw it and falling short because I couldn't explode. There's nothing you can do for a broken toe.
I think I didn't prepare as how I should have, and I gained too much weight, but I don't want to give no excuses.
In the sport of boxing, we're even accustomed to poor sportsmanship.
Richard Grant in the mild upset. A unanimous decision victory. A unanimous decision victory. A unanimous decision victory.
Oh, look at this.
Butler. Whoa! Butler just ran across the ring.
Butler just went over there and sucker punched and knocked out Grant.
Oh, boy.
Terrible. And the new commissioner, Ray Kelly, will do something very, very enforceful here.
Including the uncle of Andre Durrell right there, Leon Lawson Jr., who punched Katagi.
To Leo's credit, he has not accused Tank of any wrongdoing. Most people familiar with boxing protocol understand what happened.
People on the internet start saying Tank cheated.
But why?
Because he warmed up in Grant gloves, but he fought in winning gloves.
Right.
And they don't know how boxing works. I happen to have the video of the glove selection where both pairs are being approved and signed by both Leo and the commission. But Robert, I want you to explain people why the fighters have two gloves and who holds on to the glove.
Especially championship fights. So every fighter gets to choose the pair of gloves that they want. Years ago, they had to wear the same kind of gloves, but not anymore. It doesn't matter who you're fighting. If you choose Grant, and your opponent choose Everlast, Reyes, whatever. You could also choose two brands. In this case, it was Grant and winning. So if your number one is Grant, that was the case with Tank. But when he's warming up, something doesn't feel good.
Because he never tried them before. They're brand new.
So, he tried them.
But that's not like hitting something.
But yeah, you're not punching or anything. So
you don't have the.
So he's already wearing them, and I see that he already had the tape and everything. Yeah. But
he didn't like it.
Something he didn't like. Something he didn't like about it.
He said they weren't comfortable.
So he said, "Bring me my number 2," which was
winning.
Winning. It wasn't a Grant. But you have the right. Every fighter has the right to choose two pairs. Number 1 and number 2, and they don't have to be from the same brand.
And the commission holds on to them.
And the commission has them at all times.
The only fighter I can think of to actively accuse their opponent of tampering with the gloves and having loaded gloves, while accusing their corner of poisoning them and accusing the referee of being drunk and in the pocket of their opponent, is Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder is not only making accusations of tampered gloves, loaded gloves, he's making accusations that his own team poisoned him. He's also making accusations that the referee is in Tyson Fury's pocket and that the referee was intoxicated. It looks like the biggest conspiracy of the year is coming from Deontay Wilder himself. Walk with him. In the interest of fairness, I decided to search the internet for photographs and see if I notice a picture that would spark the slightest belief, the slightest hint of doubt in my mind that maybe Tyson Fury did cheat. Maybe he did have loaded gloves. Maybe, just maybe, Deontay Wilder was telling the truth. When I viewed the photograph taken by professional photographers and photographs that were uploaded to credible news sources, Tyson Fury's gloves looked normal. There were no ridges, there were no signs of cheating. In fact, one of the most telling photographs is actually one that was taken when Tyson Fury was entering the ring. If you take a look at his glove, it looks perfectly fine and normal. And if you go through the pictures that I posted and even do your own search, Google Tyson Fury's gloves and see if you see a photograph where his gloves look sketchy. And I guarantee if you do, it's not from a credible news source. It's from one of the YouTubers or one of the fanboys. I took it a step further. I reviewed videos of the post-fight interviews to see if I noticed anything funny about Tyson Fury's gloves or his hand wraps. And what I saw was, well, take a look.
You got to round 6, John, was how long was it going to be? Well, it didn't last.
I put the Mayan belt on top of Meat Prize collection. This will be going right at the top. This was the only belt that the
men who have shared so much.
What a fighter. What a fighter you are. Anyone who you land on, let me tell you something, you hit me in that first round, and I nearly went fucking cuckoo, dynamite. God bless you.
So, when I watched the actual live footage of Tyson Fury celebrating in his corner, the gloves look intact. They look the way they did when he entered the ring, and when I watch him celebrate post-fight, his gloves look the same. And in fact, if you watch the celebration, you see that he celebrates with the hand wraps on. He embraces Mauricio Suleiman. He hugs Deontay Wilder. He goes to Wilder's camp while his hands are still wrapped. And if you look at the hand wraps, they're pure white and clean. No signs of any blood or any type of object being on the hand wraps. And in addition to that, Tyson Fury's hands. If you have some object in your glove and you're constantly pounding with blunt force against someone, that object is pressing against your knuckles. Shouldn't there be some type of damage to your knuckles?
But I just had to overcome a lot in this thing tonight, and I just always believe that.
Now I know some people are going to say that I'm being unreasonable. It's unreasonable to expect a corner would catch a fighter cheating with tampered gloves. It's unreasonable to expect a cornerman to observe a fighter trying to load their hand wraps. It's unreasonable for me to hold a professional corner to that standard. I know some people are saying, yes, they're professionals, but sometimes things slip through the cracks. Yes, sometimes things do slip through the cracks. But is it unreasonable to expect that a professional corner would catch another fighter trying to cheat when it is in fact their job?
Louis Resto as a fighter was just rough and tough. On any night, Louis could give anybody in that division a fight.
We'll never know how far Billy Collins could have gone. You want to give him the benefit of the doubt. He was an undefeated prospect.
It would be an entertaining fight. It would be a tough fight, a lot of punching going on, and in the end, Billy would win. It seemed to me he would always win.
It was the right fight at the right time against the right opponent. He was expected to win. He should have won.
Collins walked into a big right hand, and another right by Resto.
When I watched that fight, I didn't think a crime was happening.
I just thought he ran into a tough guy with a tough punch, and he took the punch, but man, this guy can hit because of the damage it was doing to Billy's face.
He's in bad shape now, though, Ray. It has been a brawl.
This wasn't a boxing match. This was a 30-minute assault.
And the final minute of the fight. Resto continues to wail away. There's the bell. The end of the fight. And Luis Resto.
I don't think Billy Collins Sr. even thought that there might have been something wrong until the very end of the fight. When Resto went over to congratulate him, then he grabbed onto the gloves and held on, and he started screaming for the inspectors, "These gloves, these gloves."
All I remember is this chaos in the ring. There was something wrong with the gloves.
Look at him, he's still fresh. God bless you. That's beautiful.
What a night.
Tremendous night. Tremendous night. A lot of excitement here. You can colorful, just like the old days. Huh? You can't hold the commissioner. All depends on
his father's in the corner with him. Billy Collins. The father is in the corner. That must be really difficult to deal with.
Yes.
So your son.
Well, let's hear your point of view. Let's hear your point of view about that, Vic. Pleasant point of view of relationship with father and son.
Well, I think it'd be very, very difficult for a father to deal with seeing his son in that condition and to get.
In most cases, I would agree with you.
Yeah, but look at Billy Collins. He's really to be admired.
Let's go up to ring announcer Michael Buffer for the decision. All right, what's going on in?
You know, in terms of the different seedy characters, and you know, knowing that they had pretty funky reputations and were doing a lot of, you know, interesting lawless kind of things, that played into it.
There was a meeting before the fight in an apartment over a restaurant called Victor's,
at which Panama Lewis was present, and my client Louis Resto was present, including apparently a fairly significant cocaine trafficker. The cocaine trafficker was in conversation with Panama Lewis concerning the fact that he had a substantial amount of money that he wanted to wager on the fight.
The decision was made that this fight was going to be tipped to go Louis Resto's way, and a lot of money was going to be made.
The bet was hearsay, somewhat circumstantial, and made sense there might have been something going on. There was some kind of gain that was going to happen for wanting to inflict a crime like this. But it was less of an issue in terms of the ultimate things we considered. The evidence was very important, and having the gloves sitting there as sort of a 13th juror was incredibly powerful for all of us.
The estimate was that they had removed, that the 1 ounce of padding that was gone was about 50% of the padding. These are the gloves that Collins was wearing that night, and the partially unstuffed glove that Resto was wearing.
In feeling the gloves, in sitting with the gloves, in living with the gloves while we deliberated, it was very meaningful. They took on a life of their own and sort of really became a compelling character in the room.
Now, although Billy Collins' corner didn't catch the cheat prior to the fight, after the beating, when Luis Resto went to congratulate them for a good fight, Billy Collins' dad saw something suspicious, touched the glove, and noticed there wasn't any padding. So what did he do? Immediately in the ring, before they left the ring, before anyone could hide the wraps, before anyone could get rid of evidence, he made it known to the commission that something's wrong here. These gloves don't have any padding. He made sure that they inspected Luis Resto's gloves. And for that reason, he got busted. Because that's what you do when you're professionals. So again, is it unreasonable for me to expect a corner years removed from the Luis Resto incident that may be suspecting that another fighter has loaded gloves to A, check the glove, B, make sure they check the wraps, express your concern to the commission? If Deontay Wilder and his team felt like he was cheated, why is he hugging Tyson Fury at the end of the fight and embracing? Why is his team not saying, look, I want those gloves inspected, I want the hand wraps inspected? How come Deontay Wilder's not saying in the fight, like, look, I've never been hit like this before in my life, something's wrong with this? Why is it months later that he's finally speaking up saying that he was cheated? Unlike Billy Collins Jr. and his dad, who made it known in the ring at the moment in time when they suspected that Luis Resto was cheating. And it's for that reason he got busted. But not only did he get busted, they got the greatest satisfaction of it all. Unfortunately, you can't undo the damage that was done. But the world knows Billy Collins Jr. was cheated. Luis Resto, a former junior middleweight boxer, and Carlos Panama Lewis, his manager and trainer, were sentenced to prison yesterday for their roles in a glove tampering incident growing out of Resto's victory over Billy Collins Jr. in June 1983 in Madison Square Garden. Justice Eugene Nordelli of State Supreme Court in Manhattan imposed a 2 to 6 year sentence on Lewis and a 1 to 3 year term on Resto. This is another reason why I've been saying I don't believe the accusations. You're talking about criminal crimes here. You're talking about acts that people have served jail time over. Luis Resto and Panama Lewis actually did jail time for the things that Deontay Wilder is accusing Tyson Fury of. In addition to that, they were banned for life. They were banned from boxing for life. So this is deeper than just saving face, making excuses. You're talking about a serious crime where boxers and trainers have served jail time. So if one believes that is true, it's more than just litigation for damages. It's a criminal act, and you should be looking for jail time. It's also important to have a professional who understands the rules for every state and every venue that the fight's being held. Brother Nassim Richardson is one of those guys. So when Bernard Hopkins was going to fight Felix Trinidad, he recognized that Trinidad was wrapping his hands in a manner which was illegal in New York. Not everywhere, just in New York. And so for that reason, he made sure that Trinidad didn't wrap his hands that way, and made sure that Trinidad re-wrapped his hands. In addition to that, Nassim Richardson is the one who caught Antonio Margarito loading his hands and his hand wraps with plaster of Paris. So you have Brother Nassim Richardson, someone who's aware, alert, and understands the sport, preventing his fighter, Bernard Hopkins and Shane Mosley, from taking damage. Or at least in Bernard Hopkins' case, for the rules of New York. He made sure Trinidad wrapped his hands in accordance with the rules of the Athletic Commission in New York. So you have to give Brother Nassim Richardson credit for being a professional. And if you're Deontay Wilder, who watched Tyson Fury wrap his hands? Who from your team did that? And how come they weren't as professional as Brother Nassim Richardson, if that's what you believe? Because Miguel Cotto strongly believes that Antonio Margarito cheated in his fight. Remember, this Margarito got busted after his fight with Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto believes that Margarito did the same exact thing in his fight that he attempted to do with Shane Mosley. But guess what? Shane Mosley knocked Margarito out. Margarito stopped Miguel Cotto, and that loss never left Miguel Cotto's record, although most people believe that Margarito cheated. Why? Because Brother Nassim Richardson was able to catch it for Shane Mosley, but no one caught it for Miguel Cotto. That's why when you send someone into the dressing room to watch your opponent wrap their hands, you want to make sure it's someone who knows what's going on in the sport of boxing. Not just in the sport of boxing, but in every venue, in every state, the rules of every athletic commission, like Brother Nassim Richardson. Now, if Deontay Wilder would have sent Mark Brilliant into that locker room rather than JD's, maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't be feeling like there was Glovegate. Assuming there was, I personally haven't seen any objective evidence to lead me to believe that that is true. But the point and the fact remains that it is your responsibility to assemble a team to enforce your safety before your opponent ever walks into the ring. Brother Nassim Richardson 2 times did that for his fighter.
You brought up Trinidad. I know you were the one that originally found, I think it was extra tape in his gloves or some kind of, something illegal was in his glove.
The Trinidad situation, it wasn't in accordance to the laws in New York. The hand wraps weren't proper for the laws in New York. The Margarito situation,
that's where you found the bricks.
Was illegal all over the planet in boxing.
Right. And you caught both.
Yeah, I thought Margarito was going to the joint.
Right.
I thought I blew the whole fight. I thought they was gonna take Margarito out in cuffs, man. I said, took to the salt. I thought Margarito was shot. I was like, damn. I was like, Shane was really ready too. I was like, now they gonna lock this dude up. It's gonna mess up the whole fight.
Accumulated to the point where Cotto has nothing left. And Evangelista Cotto's gonna throw in the towel. And Antonio Margarito has the victory he's been waiting for all his life.
That is a...
Whatever happened prior, the fighters made their way into the arena just past 8 p.m. Vegas time. Cotto entered the ring as nearly a 2-to-1 favorite. And early on, the odds makers' assessments appeared to be on target.
Miguel Cotto looks very sharp, very quick in the early going.
The first half of the fight, we were good, like happy with his performance.
As the fight continued, Cotto remained in control with a skillful display of boxing. But Margarito withstood the attack and continued to press forward.
Cotto's won, but Margarito has really put a lot of pressure on him, unlike any he's ever had.
Cotto was outboxing, but at the same time, he was getting hit. Every round, Antonio would come in and say, hey, I'm getting him, little by little, but I'm gonna take him out.
I remember sitting at the back with Brian, and I looked over him, I think, at round 3 or 4, and I said for sure that Miguel's got this one. It just looked like he was dominating Margarito, and I think it was as early as the 6th or 7th round, he took a shot from Margarito, and something inside me just told me that was the turning point of the night.
Cotto's hurt, guys. Cotto's badly hurt by a series of Margarito uppercuts.
Yo creo que dándole la presión a cualquier peleador, pues yo creo que lo cansa. Yo creo que lo cansa. No es que se le va al aire porque pues uno lo está presionando, ¿no?
When the fight advances, something tells me you're not ready, you're tired. All my energy, all my power, all my strength. I didn't feel anything.
Para el asalto número 10, yo le dije a Capetillo, le dije, es mío ya, le vamos a ganar y pues sí, pronto se acabó.
The punishment has accumulated to the point where Cotto has nothing left. There's no point in Kenny Bayless allowing this to proceed.
No, it's over. It's over.
And Antonio Margarito has the victory he's been waiting for all his life.
That is a modern boxing classic.
For the 6 months following his victory, Margarito was one of the hottest fighters in the sport. But then came the controversy of the Mosley bout, and the consequent renewed scrutiny of his victory over Cotto. No one was more suspicious than Cotto himself, and the boxer has since closely examined pictures of Margarito's hand wraps taken after their bout and determined something peculiar.
No one in the history of boxing can see a hand wrapping broken over the knuckles. You never can find an explication for this little part here. It's just supposed to be just gus, and the gus doesn't get hard,
Ay, ese Cotto, cómo llora, cómo pone pretextos.
As further proof of his argument that Margarito used the exact same hardened wraps in both bouts.
They took off the hand wraps in his locker room, right? They didn't put a glove on his hand. Why the hand wraps have a red color there if you didn't put a glove in your hand? If you compare the red in this picture with this picture, is in the same spot. And if they took this one from Mosley fight, it's the same wraps he used in my fight. That pictures make me understand he used it with me.
For Cotto and his team, though, the issue remains unforgettable, and the sin unforgivable.
He played with my health, He has plaster on his hand, hitting me with the plaster, Thanks God again, I'm healthy, but the thing could be worse.
After 10 rounds, of being beaten with gloves that had padding taken out of them, and a fighter who had plaster Paris inside the gloves with less padding. This was Billy Collins Jr. This was how he looked. They said this was him with his eyes open after the fight. That was how he looked. Although Antonio Margarito didn't get busted for loading his gloves for the fight with Miguel Cotto, many people believe, including myself, that he did. And Miguel Cotto took that beating for 11 rounds. Now, you can say, oh, they didn't prove that he beat Miguel Cotto with plaster, but he was at least busted, attempted to load his gloves in the fight after with Shane Mosley. And ever since he was busted for loading his gloves, he never looked as powerful. He beat guys like Kermit Cintron, and he even had to fight with Paul the Punisher Williams. And immediately after Paul the Punisher Williams took that beating from Margarito, he lost to Carlos Quintana, who definitely wasn't in his class because of the damage he sustained. And Miguel Cotto was never really the same after the damage he sustained. His scar tissue would always be activated easily in every fight that he had after the Antonio Margarito fight. But what we do know is Antonio Margarito was suspended for trying to load his gloves in the Shane Mosley fight. And what we do know is that the gauze that they took, the gauze that they extracted from his gloves, looked like the same exact gauze that he used in the Miguel Cotto fight. So we do have that. That's what's called circumstantial evidence. You don't even have circumstantial evidence for the claims Deontay Wilder is making. Look at Billy Collins Jr.'s face. Look at Miguel Cotto's face. Billy Collins Jr. went 10 rounds. Miguel Cotto went 11. Being beaten with plaster. Luis Resto and Panama Lewis served jail time for what they did to Billy Collins Jr. Antonio Margarito was suspended and his trainer was banned for life. Brother Nassim thought they were going to lock Antonio Margarito up for attempted assault. Do you think it was the first time Antonio Margarito tried to load his gloves? No. Freddie Roach didn't believe it. And even Manny Pacquiao came out and said, please, what do you think? You think I'm stupid? Manny Pacquiao said that, and he usually wouldn't say anything like that. But even he knows it was a joke. Now, compare Deontay Wilder's face to Miguel Cotto's face, to Billy Collins' face, after taking a brutal beating from fighters that had their gloves loaded. Deontay Wilder is fighting a heavyweight, which means he's fighting in a division where everyone has knockout power. He's fighting in a division where one punch can change everything. Look at his face in comparison to Miguel Cotto and in comparison to Billy Collins Jr. Miguel Cotto's face never was able to hold up like it used to. Look at it, Miguel Cotto's face in the fight with Pacquiao. Couldn't hold up anymore. Miguel Cotto, if you touched him, he swelled up as a result of the beating. Billy Collins Jr. couldn't fight anymore after that beating. It was forced to retire, was forced into depression, and it ended up unfortunately leading to his untimely death. Deontay Wilder, look at his face. In a division with the hardest punches in the world, the man he fought weighed 270 pounds. If his gloves were loaded, like Deontay Wilder claims, how come Deontay Wilder's face doesn't look like Miguel Cotto's? How come it doesn't look like Billy Collins Jr.? People talking about the cuts in the ear, but there were reports that came from a piercing that Deontay Wilder had in his ear. And you see all the ear rings and the crazy type of things that Deontay Wilder wears. I think he even has a nose ring. So again, I ask you, logically, look at the comparisons. All I'm doing is just using objective examples to show where is the concrete evidence. In these other cases, you have people who actually serve jail time, serve suspensions, who are documented as committing these acts. Wilder has excuses. He may even have suspicion. But you need more than that. Miguel Cotto didn't come out saying Antonio Margarito was a cheater in his fight until he got busted fighting Shane Mosley. Until after he saw the gauze that they took from his gloves when he was trying to wrap up for the Mosley fight and said that looks identical to the gauze in the picture. That's when Miguel Cotto said, you cheated against me. And even still, Miguel Cotto didn't make a big deal, and Miguel Cotto fought him again and beat him. In closing, after reviewing the possibility of Glovegate in a light most favorable to Deontay Wilder, I have to conclude that it doesn't exist. The reason being is, when I search for evidence on my own, when I look at pictures on my own from reliable sources, like I just Google or surf the web for photographs that were taken by actual photographers that were at the fight, I don't see tampered gloves. The only images that I see that show ridges and things of that nature are from the Wilder channels. In addition to that, all the other evidence that I pointed out, the corners caught this some way, some form, some shape, some fashion. Whether it was Billy Collins Jr., whether it was his dad, Senior, who saw it, touched the gloves, alerted the commission immediately. Not immediately, immediately he alerted the commission. Whether it was Brother Nassim Richardson, who was doing his job because he understands the ways in which you can wrap your hands and the ways in which you cannot wrap your hands. He understands the differences in each state, the rules for every athletic commission, and that's why he said, Trinidad, if we were anywhere but New York, you could wrap your hands like that, but you can't tonight. And that's also why his professionalism alerted him to Margarito's hand wraps and said, something is wrong with this. You saw JD's. He was the one in the locker room. He's supposed to know what's going on. Remember, it's his responsibility to protect his fighter. But somehow, Wilder believes that the gloves were loaded. He believes the gloves were tampered with. But he still has the guy who was in the locker room who was supposed to protect him from that type of beating on his team. He got rid of Brillin and he kept JD's. It's amazing to me. It is amazing to me. But that's what we have. Wilder's face held up better than Billy Collins Jr., held up better than Miguel Cotto's. How? If he's a victim of loaded gloves the same way they were, why were their faces much worse than his? When Tyson Fury's 273 pounds, and he's not only saying that he's not only saying that Tyson Fury tampered with the gloves, he's saying that he had an object in the gloves as well. Not even plaster. He's saying an object. So why doesn't he look like Miguel Cotto and Billy Collins Jr.? That's what I want to know, just objectively. Just explain that to me. So what type of object did he have? And why does his gloves look normal in every other picture except the ones that are floating around the internet? So I never wanted to touch Glovegate, but once the fans of Leo Santa Cruz came out and started doing this, I just wanted to say this. Don't make yourself look foolish. People know this has happened in the past. They've implemented protocol to prevent this from happening. Doesn't mean it cannot ever happen again, but there are ways you got to go about making the accusation. And this isn't it. You have to legitimately do something. Like Billy Collins Sr., you have to legitimately do something. Like Brother Nassim Richardson. But when all is said and done, I know the real reason why Wilder is doing this. Because he doesn't want to step in the ring with Tyson Fury. Look at the picture on the screen right now. You see Deontay Wilder's face? That's the face when you did something wrong and your mom says to you, wait till daddy gets home. Deontay Wilder is up against the ropes. He sees that daddy's home and he's about to get that spanking. I keep hearing about all this proof. I keep hearing about proof. Such and such exists. Such and such doctor. But I haven't seen anything. When are they going to pull the receipts? When are they going to stop talking? That's what I want to know. You see, Billy Collins Sr. didn't have to talk. The proof existed in that moment. He called the commission. Brother Nassim Richardson didn't have to talk. In that moment, he had the proof. He called the commission. All I keep hearing is this proof exists. That proof exists. I keep hearing all these conspiracy theories, but I see nothing of substance. Not one action that means a damn thing in terms of proving that there was some form of misdealing on the night in question. All I keep hearing is just waiting. Oh, I got this proof. Oh, I got that proof. They got nothing. Do they strike you as the type of people who would just sit on some proof? And what does it do to sit on it? Now's the time when you're trying to stop Fury from having another fight. Now's the time where you're trying to restore your reputation, right? So when is it going to be the right time to drop the receipts? When is it going to be the right time to release the proof? If you got proof, it's 150. That's all I'm going to say. If there's any proof that is in their possession, it's 150.
Catch me creeping down the dog street. This is where me and the zombies meet. Guarantee we all gonna eat. It's Zombie Ray again with HD. I'm a zombie in the night, you better run from me. Zombie Ray in the house, you better run, homie. Brought a mask and some gloves with some thugs with me. I came to do damage, you wanna purge with me. Super Saiyan zombie, I'll be